My name's Dan Columbus. I am the service manager slash service guy for Vandenbush Irrigation. First, I like to always run through my tools and what I use on a daily basis and how I use them. I always tell guys that, these are my tools. I know how they work. So you have your own tools and you should know how they work. My meters are going to read different things than your meters. So I always say, grab a good solenoid, ohm it out with your meter, grab a known power source, take a voltage reading on your meter so you know what your tools are doing. So my go-to every day is generally my multimeter. I have two of them. This one I use for voltage and ohms. This one I only use for clamping on for amperage. For the most part, this is my decoder guy. This is my everything else. When I'm troubleshooting, I know if my controller is putting out good voltage at 24 to 30 volts, I should have the same voltage in my field. So if I have a valve issue, on a conventional system, I'm using this guy, measuring ohms on a solenoid. Does the crowd know what a ohm on a solenoid should be? 20 to 60? Okay. Anybody else in the crowd? You, ma'am?
No, tell me, Dad.
I always say anywhere from 25 to 40. I know that most of the Rainbird solenoids will be within that range, but it varies on brand. It also varies on whether or not you have more than one solenoid hooked up to a valve. If you have one solenoid, I generally say a Rainbird Golf one should be 30 ohms. If I have two Rainbird Golf heads in line, that should be 15 ohms. Any more than that, it drops. I always account for a little bit of wire run as well. So that's why I say anywhere from 25 to 40 is where I'm not saying anything higher than that or lower than that doesn't work, but something to keep in the back of mind. So that's what I use this guy for. This guy is my amp reading. When I'm troubleshooting a two-wire system and my controller is in short finding mode, if I clamp this guy on my two-wire path, I know that if I have 200 amps or milliamps at the controller, I'm trying to find where that amperage is going out in the field. If I'm tracking down decoders, I'm hooking on each valve decoder, trying to find where that 200 milliamps is going. From my multimeters, I generally also use, and you guys have probably seen one of these, maybe you have one of these. This is good for conventional controllers when you open up a valve box and have 40 wires in there and you don't know which one is which station. This is a wire ringer. People have different names for it, but it does essentially, you pinpoint which wire you're trying to find in that valve box. Hook it up at the controller, go to the valve box. It may make a noise on more than one wire, but it is always the loudest one that is generally your wire you're looking for. Here's one you guys may have not seen. You ever seen one of these? It's a TDR. What this guy does, and it's pretty handy on a two-wire system for sure, is it sends a signal down the path and produces a line graph. And depending on what it produces, it'll show you an open, a short, a splice. It'll say 47 feet down there is an open connection. And you pace out 47 feet and it should be fairly accurate. This finds the wire. It's a wire tracer, wire finder. It does not necessarily find breaks or nicks on the wire. In my experience, a wire tracer can trace through a break or a nick sometimes. That's when we get into our fault finder.